2, and 1. Hey, hi. It always catches me by surprise for some reason. Good morning. My name is Andrew, and you have found yourself with the Morning Hash. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm going to try to breeze through this one. I've been trying to make these videos about 10 to 12 minutes long. The last one I said it would only be that long, and it was 20 minutes long. So let's just jump right into it, okay? Today we're going to do some dot connecting between what's going on with Antifa and George Soros, perhaps the most evil man to have ever walked the face of the earth. And I'm not kidding. So let's just jump right in, like I said. So the governor, was it the governor? No, Atlanta mayor. Let's just play the Atlanta mayor, okay? Let's just listen to what he has to say. Let's make sure the volume's on.
Many of them don't even live in Atlanta or in the state of Georgia, and they don't represent the voices of Atlanta. And some of them were found with explosives on them. You heard that correctly, explosives, and that has led to a police officer's car being set on fire, and other destruction has occurred. And so, make no mistake about it, these individuals meant harm to people and to
So there's
property.
the Atlanta mayor saying that Antifa had explosives and they were out there to do destruction. Okay, they are a terrorist organization. That goes back to this. Kemp orders state of emergency due to unlawful protests, and 1,000 National Guard troops are on standby. It goes over here. So, by the governor, state of emergency declaration on the evening of January 21st, 2023. Protests turned violent in downtown Atlanta as masked activists threw rocks, launched fireworks, and burned a police vehicle in front of the Atlanta Police Foundation office building. And it goes on to for the remainder of the state of emergency declaration. Now, and you also heard the mayor said that they were using explosives. That's right, explosives. Well, you wonder why in the world did they do that? Okay, let's see. Well, here's another article. Atlanta activists called for a night of rage after man killed and a cop was injured. Now, let's go to here. Let's go to the American Thinker to here. We're here. Antifa tries to turn Atlanta into Minneapolis or Kenosha. Now, at the bottom here, the escalating violence on the site of the proposed academy. So let me start over a little bit. I'll back up a little bit. This whole thing started when Antifa wanted to designate a forest area as I don't know, some kind of preserve, and they were actually building. Where's it at? This. They were building an Atlanta public safety training center for the police. So, and here's a little timeline of it. And it tells you the protesters were assembled. It starts back here. Excuse me. Atlanta Police Foundation starts their research. Former mayor against opposition. Here begins the protesting. And then 7 protesters arrested after a Molotov cocktail was thrown at authorities. 5 people arrested on domestic terrorism charges. Okay. That's how this whole thing got going. That's when Atlanta activists called for a night of rage, and that's when uh, the young man, what's his name again? The escalating violence on the site of the proposed academy inevitably led to the death. Manuel Esteban Paez Terran, an Antifa member who believed he was either a plural human being or an object, pronouns they, it, fired on a state trooper at the new Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, wounding the trooper badly. Law enforcement officers responded logically, firing back at the person who had tried to kill one of their own. Their shots landed, and Tehran's pronouns are now were, was. Oh, yeah. And just in case, here's the gun that they found. The ballistics came back, matching everything like that. The fingerprints came back matching. Here's the Georgia, was it Ballistic Institute or Georgia? I can't remember what the GBI stands for, but probably Ballistic Institute. Ballistic analyst shows projectile recovered from trooper's wound matches gun in protester's possession. Okay. And they went on to burn down Atlanta, and you can see it here.
Stop Cop City! Oh.
This is a protest, but see what it says up here? Explosions, explosions, explosions.
Oh, they bombing the police car. Oh, shit. Oh, they done bust the police car. Okay.
And then someone tells them to stop recording it.
Oh, they done bust the
Even more
police car.
explosions going off. You think that's it?
Oh, shit. They going off.
See all this? That's Atlanta, right? See all this? Those look like the same pictures, actually. That's Atlanta. I mean, so they turned Atlanta into a war zone, okay? Now, let me take a look here. They're going to do the same thing in New York. Now, I want to get this young man's name correct. No, in Memphis. Memphis, excuse me. Well, it is in New York. Antifa vows to burn it all down in New York City following the death of Tyree Nichols. Now, the Tyree Nichols thing, I believe, is a completely different story. I'm not going to show the video. If you have not seen the video, did he resist arrest? It looks like it. Did he run from the cops? It looks like it. Did he deserve what happened to him? No. Absolutely not. This looks to be a legit case of police brutality, um, which, is terrible, is absolutely terrible. It was in Memphis, and Antifa is now vowing to burn down New York City, I guess. Which brings me along to, let's see, where did it go? Okay, so female Antifa saboteur who architect's daughter screams as she's arrested for terror plot against Atlanta Police Academy. Soros-linked extremist was among 5 dragged from the Woodland Autonomous Zone. That was it, the Woodland Autonomous Zone that they had in Atlanta, where they were going to build the police training center. The Tortura, or whatever his name was, didn't want to leave, so he decided to open fire at police officers. And what do you think is going to happen when police officers fire back? Yeah. So then she's dragged off as a terrorist plot. Now, it's interesting she mentioned George Soros, right? So let's see. What I do there? Yeah. Soros. Where'd it go? It's like it just disappeared. God, consart it. Soros. Soros. Let's see. Soros. There's Soros linked plot. Why won't it find it here? There it is. Soros. She also made an appearance in a Guardian article sympathetic to her cause, which was funded by billionaire George Soros, famed for funding woke DAs. Huh. George Soros is the chairman of the OSF and is the Open Society Foundation, and has given away more than $32 billion of his personal fortune to fund the group. That's a lot of money. I think that Soros is one of the world's best known philanthropists. He is also known for funding many of the woke district attorneys whose policies have been blamed for soaring violent crime across the U.S. You may question that. That is where we bring in George Soros, ladies and gentlemen. Who is George Soros? George Soros, born Georgi Schwartz, is a Hungarian-American businessman and, again, philanthropist. And again, it's Wikipedia. I understand. I don't like to use it a whole lot. But they mentioned the DAs that George Soros is funding all over the United States. Let's just take a look here for a second, okay? This is on Fox News. This is YouTube with Fox News. Let's hear what they have to say about the Soros DAs.
Races, it's very difficult to compete, especially when the voter turnout in those races tends to be very low. This is a deeply held ideology that you've seen implemented in cities across the country. You showed all the DAs on the screen, and it really comes down to what the DA-elect in New York just said in that interview, I believe with Eric Shawn, when he said, well, it just depends on what your definition of a criminal is. And as you see with the policies, they do not believe in putting people in prison because because they think that the system is
Yeah.
systemically racist and irredeemable, and therefore they want everybody to be released out of it, regardless of you're a murderer or not.
And I think the scariest part of this too, Katie, is when you deal with the new vision that Alvin Bragg has, that armed robbery, as long as nobody was really ever threatened or hurt, will be charged as a misdemeanor, petty larceny. That will cause the police to not show up when somebody calls to say somebody's holding us up with a gun.
Okay, so it goes on to several of the cities. Let's take a look at how many cities that George Soros has funded the DA, okay? This is at Breitbart. Let's see. Does it start there? Yeah, Los Angeles County District Attorney Georgia Gashon, elected in 2020. Chicago, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox. She was the one, yes, notorious for her intervention in the Juicy Smollett case, dropping the charges. Oh my God. Even though homicides in Chicago hit 800 in 2021. Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner. Houston, Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. Dallas County District Attorney John Creuzot. San Antonio, Bexar County, Phoenix District Attorney, St. Louis, East San Francisco Bay, New York, Manhattan, Baltimore, Orlando. And then there's a further list of Soros-backed prosecutors current through, that's only through 2019. Jeez. I mean, this guy has enough money to fund both sides. That's interesting. And just in case you're wondering about the both sides, this is the Georgia Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission to see, down there in Atlanta where all that madness with the Antifa and police went down. Here's all of the contributors' name. Now, most of these are for Stacey Abrams for governors, but there's a few others in here. Now, Alexander Soros is George Soros' son. So even though George Soros is already 92, great. Stacey Abrams. Let's see. There's a few others in here. This site sometimes takes a little bit to load, so we might just go ahead and move on. But I'll have every single one of these will be posted down in the description, so you can click on the links and you can find out for yourself. Again, Andrea Soros, I believe that's his daughter. Fair Fight, Abrams for governor, Georgia Next. Georgia Safety and Justice. And now this is just getting into George right here. 500,000, 500,000, 100,000. So he's just giving away money left and right to fund crooked DAs and also fund Antifa. So there you go. Why do we allow this man to continue to live in our country, to even visit our country? He's already been banned from Hungary. Good job, Hungary. Viktor Orban, very nice. Now let's see. Soros funded Antifa is destabilizing America and other countries. This is a very good article by the India Narrative. There might have been something in here that, and it also has a little bit of the history of Antifa dating back to the 1930s, if you were interested in it. That's what I wanted to do. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm a little out of sorts here. Let's just take a look at some of the things that he said here. Now, this is from the magazine Connoisseur of Chaos. And that's not it. It's from CJ. So I'm still learning as I go here. I just want to read something real quick, okay? When the dust cleared and the debris swept away, he stood revealed as Hillary Clinton's most generous billionaire donor. Yet his name rarely surfaced during the presidential campaign, and that's generally the way he likes it. Dark money. Jane Mayer's book about covert political funding refers to the Koch brothers more than 300 times in exhortation of the radical right, but mentions progressive icon George Soros just 6 times. And 3 of those are footnotes. Okay, one of the richest men. Let's see. He goes on and on. This is a quote from George Soros right here. The main obstacle to a stable and just world order, Soros has declared, is the United States. I'll repeat that. The main obstacle to a stable and just world order, Soros has declared, is the United States. So, what do you do to destroy the United States? You fund one side to fight against the other side and create complete chaos, create complete havoc. It's called the Hegelian dialectic. Look it up. I'll type it in the description. Let's see. There were some other things I wanted to. Oh, that's what that's what I wanted to do here. Let me see. I'm clicking all over the place here. Oh, this is about his yeah, Ukraine, and he gets into the Ukraine and Poland quite a bit. Again, I'm trying to oh yeah, George Soros called for NATO to use Eastern European soldiers, Ukrainians, to reduce the risk of body bags for NATO countries in his 1993 New World Order article. So he is more than willing to sacrifice the people of the Ukraine, right? Um, let's see. Crap, now I gotta find what I was looking for. Um, let's see. Okay, this is what I was looking for. Exclusive. Billionaires back new media firm to combat disinformation. This is on Axios. A new public benefit corporation backed by billionaires Reid Hoffman, George Soros, and others is launching Tuesday to fund new media companies and efforts that tackle disinformation. Okay. Now, I want to point something out here. I want to point out how many times the word progressive shows up. Acronym invested in for-profit companies that built media and technology solutions for progressive causes, right? Although backed and launched by progressives, ready to go. Courier Newsroom is a local news group with a progressive perspective. It's this whole progressive thing, right? They like to call themselves progressive. I mean, everyone likes progress to some degree, but they really like calling themselves progressives. Let's see what Thomas Sowell has to say about progressives.
The progressives, I'll quote intellectuals and race. Broadly speaking, while in the progressive era, socioeconomic differences were attributed to race, in the liberal era, such differences were often attributed to racism. Let's take each in turn, the progressives and the liberals. The progressives, of course, dominated the first several decades of the last century. Who were they? And broadly speaking, what did they believe about race?
They believed that differences in performances and outcomes between races were due to genetics, and therefore that they also believed in things like eugenics, and they set the stage for what ultimately became the Holocaust.
And why did they call themselves progressives? Or why did they come to be called progressives?
Well, I guess they seem to think that they alone were interested in progress. But of course, everybody believes in some changes, and they believe that those changes will be for the better. So it's hard for me to understand how they could distinguish themselves from others by that term. But they believe they could, and I guess that's what matters.
All right. You quote H.L. Mencken, whom you call a prominent intellectual during the progressive era. Quote, "It is apparent that the Negro, no matter how much he is educated, must remain, as a race, in a condition of subservience, that he must remain the inferior. Therefore, the effort to educate him has awakened in his mind ambitions and aspirations which, in the very nature..."
I can't believe it just did that to me. Crap. I do not have YouTube Premium. Unfortunately, I apologize for this. Let's turn this back up and skip this.
Very nature of things must go unrealized, close quote. It's that phrase, in the very nature of things,
Yes.
that gets to the view.
Yes, that was a pervasive view during that era.
And it is straightforward, pure racism in the strict sense of believing that the races are materially different from one another.
Yes. Um, it's so hard to one of the problems with this way of thinking is that it eternalizes a set of circumstances that exist at the moment. And when you realize how even a whole century is just a blink of an eye in the history of the human race, and when you realize, for example, that the IQ tests have only existed for about a century and are by no means infallible, uh, you if you look back over the centuries and you see how the races that were on top at one time were now no longer on top. I mean, at one time, the Middle East was the leading civilization in the world. And before them, China, for even more centuries, was the leading civilization of the
Okay, so
world.
he goes on to speak more about the progressive movements and everything like that, but they sound like a really good bunch of people, don't they? Progressive. George Soros, he seems real progressive. He was alive during this time, H.L. Mencken. He was alive when he was a prominent progressive. They still believe these things, people. Why do you think they call themselves progressives in the United States government? It's because this is what they believe. Now, I wanted to do one more thing here. Oh, Reid Hoffman. Let's see. So this is the same article. Billionaires back new media firm to combat disinformation. Now, this is funded by Reid Hoffman, George Soros, and others. And why it matters, the group will be led by Tara McGowan, a former Democratic strategist who previously ran a progressive nonprofit called Acronym. Okay. So, disinformation. United Nations planning to criminalize spreading misinformation that causes social disorder and hatred. Huh. Let's see. The United Nations has launched a new initiative to counter the use of information and communications technologies for criminal purposes, which appears to apply to individuals who share misinformation. Who gets to decide what misinformation is? I certainly hope it's not Anthony Fauci. My God in heaven, I hope it's not him. Private companies, including social media platforms such as Facebook's parent company, Meta, are also involved in this venture. Draft versions of the convention reveal that the UN may criminalize posts that promote hatred, including ideological and political, in addition to the vague term extremism. The Chinese Communist Party, naturally, has also submitted proposals to criminalize sharing information that results in social disorder. Who gets to decide these things? The billionaires Reid Hoffman and George Soros? If you question them, they get to use their little puppet, the United Nations, to crack down on you? Is that what this is? There was one there was one more thing I wanted to say here before we get off here. And I'm sorry. Where did it go? Crap, I'm gonna lose it again. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to get an editor. That wasn't it. Anyway, I think I'll call it quits for there because I just keep clicking around, looking for something. I think I lost. um, but it goes on to there was a quote about George Soros and nationalism. That's the only one I can find. I can look it up real quick. I'll just do this real quick. So let's see. George Soros and nationalism. Jeez. Oh, let's see. This might have been it. George Soros launches $1 billion move to educate against nationalism. Okay. Now, just real briefly, let's take a look. I take a gander at what is nationalism. Okay. If I can find it again. I think this is where it's at. This isn't where it's at. Let's just look it up. There's a definition. This has gone well over 20. I'm sorry. Nationalism, identification with one's own nation and support for its interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. Another definition, advocacy of or support for the political independence of a particular nation or people. So let's take those one at a time, okay? And second one, really, advocacy or support for the political independence of a particular nation or people. That's interesting. George Soros is looking to fight nationalism, identification with one's own support. What's wrong with supporting one's own country, the interest of one's own country, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations? The exclusion, you mean like building a big, beautiful wall to determine who we should or should not let into our country? criminals or people with disease or terrorists or people we have no idea who they are. Millions and millions of people have crossed into this country illegally. And if you want to say that being against that makes me a nationalist, fine. I'm a nationalist. I don't care. If it means fighting against people like George Soros, who fund evil DAs and who fund Antifa so that we have infighting within our country, if it's fighting against that, that's what I'll do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap it up there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry I didn't. I'm going to have to cut these down somehow, but there's just so much information to talk about. I very, very much appreciate you joining me here this Sunday morning. It is January 29th, 2023. And there was something else I was going to say. Oh, yeah. Please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Hit the little notification bell. Share this with any of your friends. I'm just trying to get this information out there, guys. There will be chapter 2 shortly. And I'll try to not make it 50 hours long. I'm so sorry, guys, but there's a lot to talk about. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm very grateful that you decided to listen to me talk about anything at all. Thank you so much for being here. You take care of yourselves, you take care of each other, and I will see you.